My name is Roberta Ayala, and I'm running for office because I've lived in Thornton a really long time. I grew up here. In 1987, my family moved to Thornton. We moved into the original Hoffman homes. My parents were able to afford housing in that specific development, and I grew up in Thornton. I graduated from Skyview High School. One of the things that's really important to me is making sure that the community's voice is heard in the decisions that are made in our city council. And I wanted to run because I feel like I know the city really well from living here pretty much my whole life. One thing I'd like to do differently than other council members that have represented Ward 2 before is to make sure that we really have a robust communication plan with our residents. The whole time I've lived in Thornton, there's really never been like an email system or any type of newsletters that are going out directly from council members into the community and getting a constant communication and feedback from our community members. So one of my goals is to make sure that we have that kind of dialogue going on with the community. And that's one of the things that would be a little bit different about the things that I would do for Ward 2 and for Thornton than other council members. Campaign finance reform is a really important issue to me. Last year, me and another city council member were able to head up efforts to start the conversation and organize the community around campaign finance reform in the city of Thornton. I specifically headed a group as a community member called Thornton for Fair Elections. And during that process, we were able to do a lot of organizing, and we started the process of collecting signatures to force our city council to look at this whole conversation in a more in-depth way. The way that would have happened if we were able to get those signatures was to put some policy in place so we have more guidelines on the campaign finance rules that we have right now. Right now they are very limited. There aren't any limits on how much can be contributed to a specific candidate's campaign, and the reporting structure is not very transparent. Really, voters don't find out about the contributions made to specific candidates until after ballots have already been dropped or they're in the mail. And so we wanted to make sure that there's policy in the city of Thornton so that that stuff is just a little bit more honed in for the community. We started that conversation mainly to get folks engaged in that dialogue in the community, because moving forward, the goal is really to make sure that voters in Thornton, which is a suburban city, are actually looking at these issues, specifically around the development that's going on in our city and other special interests like oil and gas, big developers and corporate interests that are putting money into our elections, and they have a bigger voice than the actual people of the city of Thornton. One thing that I would support on Thornton City Council is making sure that city council members that receive contributions from special interests are recusing themselves from voting on those specific issues. We've seen over the years that there have been really large contributions made to specific council members, and then those decisions are being made by those council members. So it's really important that folks are recusing themselves from voting on those specific issues when they're receiving financial compensation for their campaigns in those special interests of corporations or other special interest groups. So in the city of Thornton, growth is definitely a huge issue. We are in a certain situation right now where we're facing the need for more housing inventory in the state of Colorado, and Thornton is definitely has great opportunities for folks to be able to purchase homes here, and in some cases it can be more affordable than other areas. The big problem is that the voters' voice isn't really heard in those decision-making processes. One of the things I'd like to do is have a bigger dialogue with the voters of Thornton. What has been going on in the city is that there have been a lot of decisions made on where housing should be, what type of housing should be in specific areas, but there really isn't a dialogue going on between the voters and the decision makers. I'd like to see us have a better dialogue in that area. And the other thing is it always ties back to campaign finance reform in the city of Thornton. When we have so many special interests, especially corporate developer interests, having such a huge voice in where and how housing is developed, we don't have the ability to create housing structures that are really developed for the best interests of people and working families. So to that end, I'd like to make sure that we are having those dialogues, seeing what people need, and making sure that we're developing our city in the best way for it to grow, to preserve open space, and to have housing that is reflective of our community and our community's wants and needs. Housing is a really complex issue, and there's really never going to be just one solution that fits everybody's needs and wants and desires. But one thing, again, that we can do is have better communication and also do more to educate the community on what kind of housing would be best for different types of situations. So one thing that's important is we have to be able to have housing where people can work and live in the city. And we have housing right now that's being built, and housing developments that are being built mainly for corporate interests and not really putting the needs of the community in up front. So what I'd like to do is make sure that we're working with our community members to have more of a comprehensive look at what would be affordable for working families, and develop our housing so that it's going to actually be affordable for those folks to be able to buy homes and have like their ability to buy a first-time home and just grow their family in Thornton. Thornton is facing an influx in unhoused population here, and one of the things that we can do is just again to make sure that we're working with our community to develop places for folks to have resources. There have been conversations around having different workforce housing where folks can get resources to get back on their feet. Currently, in the past, those types of resources have been ignored and put on the side burner just to move forward with other types of developments. One thing I'd like to do is bring that conversation to the forefront and make sure that we're actually addressing that issue. One thing for sure is that we have limited resources in our city to address such a huge problem. I'd like to see Thornton partner with other municipalities in our county to come up with solutions to the problem. It's going to take a lot of minds and ideas to solve a really large problem. But by staying in a bubble and ignoring the issue, we're only perpetuating the problem. So I'd like for us to actually partner with other municipalities and our county to come up with viable solutions to solve this huge problem. For quite a few years, probably over the past 10 years, fracking has been a huge topic in people's minds. And when I go to doors, folks are concerned about the probability of fracking causing health risks to their family. They are concerned about it being near schools, hospitals, and places where children and people are living. So what we need to do is make sure that we're having, again, like robust conversations with our community. When I talk to community members, they're concerned of fracking being close to their home and to their schools. We've just placed 10 fracking pads in our city, and we're working on moving the wastewater from fracking out of Thornton into other locations where it'll be stored. The fact of the matter is that folks are concerned about this, and we have to make sure that we're making policy around this that's going to put the health and safety of our community before the corporate interests that are involved in hydraulic fracking. There has been an uptick in crime here in Thornton, especially post-COVID and during COVID. There was an uptick in crime. I've lived here my entire life, and I've been through some of the more trying times in our country in Thornton. And usually during those times, there is an uptick in crime. And I think that one thing that we can do is to have a more robust plan around community policing. This last summer, I had the opportunity to take the Citizens Police Academy here in Thornton, and I went through the whole program. And one thing I learned is that we can put more police officers on the street, but they can never be in one place to catch any specific crimes. One of the things in all the research I've done around criminal justice that helps communities fight crime is to have folks have more community meetings with each other. One of the things I've done in Wood Glen is organized a community group, a community watch, and we've been able to just kind of keep a watch out for each other to make sure that we're doing things that prevent property theft in our own community. All the research I've done and seen, and even the things that our Thornton police officers put out as far as communications, involve people really being proactive, locking your car, locking your home, and just watching out for each other and watching your neighborhood. We can do that in partnership with our police force here in Thornton to make sure that our crime is reduced. And doing that will help out with reducing the numbers. We've seen less car thefts in Wood Glen since we've been talking to each other more and watching out for each other in our community. A few of the biggest challenges that Ward 2 faces is the fact that we are one of the older parts of Thornton. Many of our houses are anywhere from 80 to 50 years old, and some communities are a little bit newer. But with aging communities, there's also the reduction in HOAs, and a lot of times our communities start to feel a little run down. And one of the things I want to work on is making sure that we put to the forefront revitalization along with that growth that we're having in Thornton. So doing some more infill development in the areas so we don't have so much urban sprawl. Also along with that, I've become a little bit more involved in the historical preservation of our city. And in doing that, we take pride in our older neighborhoods and make sure that we're maintaining them in the best way possible. So putting more resources towards code enforcement and just having our city put more resources into keeping our older neighborhoods clean and maintained, fixing the streets and making the streets safer for our community. One of the big issues too is also speeding. So there's a lot of people that race on our roads, especially down south. And I think it happens up in the north area as well. But we do have to really put a huge focus on street design. Designing streets so that they're less fun and easy to speed on will make it so that we have less of these really horrible car crashes in our neighborhoods. The pipeline from the Poudre River to Thornton has been put on hold for a little while now. One of the biggest issues with that is our ability to develop our city and grow and put more housing into the city of Thornton. This is a huge problem, and I think that one of the biggest issues we have is just our current leadership is not working together and not able to really work with other communities in order to make this happen. One of the things I bring to the table is I've negotiated contracts for labor for years. And one of the things I want to be able to do is really come to the table and have a deal and make sure that we're doing the right thing for our city, doing the right thing for the other communities, and have a win-win solution with the water access to the Poudre River. The sale of the Broncos was able to generate an additional $1.25 million for the city of Thornton. This is important to me because one of the things that we've wanted to do in arts and culture, along with the Thornton Arts and Humanities Board that I sit on, is to generate more opportunities for children in the arts. We are currently looking, along with the staff of Arts and Culture in Thornton, to be able to get more ceramic space and studios for our city so that folks can access the ability to make ceramic pieces in our city. I would support the opportunity to fund a ceramic studio in our city. One of the other opportunities we have is to fund other programs. I do know that our police and fire department also do programs that help children. I love that. I love those programs and I like to see them funded, but I'd like to see us add additional programs to our city for children, especially since middle schools don't have sports programs very often anymore. It'd be great to have more sports opportunities for children in the city of Thornton. The most important thing to me is that we have an open dialogue with our community. I want to make sure that we have access to clean drinking water and that we have water available for our city into the future for growth and sustainability. I'd like to make sure that we preserve open space in our city as well. I'm also concerned with making sure that the voices of marginalized communities are heard in the city of Thornton. And I'm just asking for your votes so that we can make sure that these priorities are put forward.